The snag that we've run into at Kyalami is that because the extra grip that the car is generating through the corners, it's putting extra stress on the suspension components, and we actually had quite a serious suspension failure this morning due to the extra G-forces being created by the car. And just from a safety point of view, the team has decided that we will give Kyalami a miss. We'll go back to PE. We need to redesign some of the parts on the car to actually match the performance of the car.
Although the Sasol Ford and Opel Calibra were sidelined, it was business as usual for the Audi squad. Race cars are highly sophisticated, high-technology machines, and all the latest electronic and computer aids are utilized to obtain maximum performance. Mass distribution is critical in terms of optimum handling, and nothing is left to chance in preparing the cars for battle.
Get the car balanced right. Put the driver in or put somebody in at his weight, and then we set the car up so that both back wheels weigh the same and both front wheels weigh the same.
The Audis of Terry Moss and Chris Aberdeen dominated the practice sessions, with Sarah van der Merwe's withdrawal moving the BMWs of Dion Jabeur and Tony Viana onto the second row of the grid. Although no national championship points were up for grabs for Wesbank Modified teams at Saturday's meeting, there was plenty of pride and prestige at stake for drivers and manufacturers. The event counted towards the lucrative Kyalami Challenge, and this provided for added incentive. As the lights turned to green, Terry Moss swept into turn 1 ahead of Chris Aberdeen, with early signs of extreme distress from the Opel GSI driven by Don Brains. The race cam on the Moss Rothmans Audi picks up the action as the field streamed towards the Nashua corner on the old Kyalami start-finish straight. Approaching Budget corner, a flying Chris Aberdeen in the Bosel Audi came up on the inside of Moss. The two Audis were already well clear of the rest of the field and side by side through Budget corner. It was Moss who held a slight advantage by virtue of the inside line into Yellow Pages corner, and he clung onto a tenuous lead. The two Audis were followed by the Class B cars, with the Dion Jabeur and Tony Viana BMWs locked in battle with Johan Coetzee's Gearmax Nissan Skyline. A good fight was also developing between veteran Gary Dunkley in the superb-sounding Sabat Porsche Carrera Turbo and Larry Wolford's Sabat Skyline. Terry Moss looked as though he was out on a Sunday drive in the Rothmans Audi, but he was about to run into more problems with Aberdeen sneaking up on the inside again at the Continental hairpin. As the two Audis tore towards the Caltech sweep, it was Aberdeen who this time held the advantage. Aberdeen and Moss made use of every centimetre of track, with the Audi circulating at around 30 seconds a lap quicker than the cars in Class D. As the Audi pair swept past the start-finish line for the first time, the oil flags were out after the Brains engine blow-up. While Aberdeen and Moss fought for the outright lead, a similar duel had developed in Class C between Keith Carr in the white VW Golf GTI and veteran Richie Jukes in the BMW 323. An interesting scenario was also developing in Class D. Here, Cape Townian Steve Wyndham in the Automark Toyota Conquest was busy fending off the Golfs of Jannie Stradom and Richard Sorensen. Up front, Terry Moss had regained the lead from Chris Aberdeen on lap 3. Race cams mounted inside and outside the Rothmans Audi give an insight into Moss's unorthodox driving style and the sheer speed of the Wesbank frontrunners. Behind the leaders, a breathtaking third-lap maneuver by Johan Coetzee at the Caltech sweep took the Gearmax Nissan Skyline ahead of the BMWs of Dion Jabeur and Tony Viana. The three cars were locked together in no-holds-barred racing. Coetzee is a former oval track star and was fired up in the heat of a superb battle. With the adrenaline really pumping and trying a little too hard at the notorious total curve, Coetzee slid wide. The Skyline took to the gravel trap before slewing back across the circuit and slammed head-on into the safety barrier with a tremendous thump. Kyalami marshals were already on the spot as Larry Wolford went past the stricken Nissan with Coetzee out of the car and indicating he was unhurt. Unaffected by the drama, Richie Jute and Keith Carr were still hard at it in Class C. Jute had squeezed his way ahead of Carr, with the Golf now chasing the BMW. Matters were also hotting up in Class D, where Steve Wyndham and the Toyota Conquest were coming under increasing pressure from the Golfs of Richard Sorensen and Jannie Stradom. There was also pressure for Terry Moss, who had Chris Aberdeen looking for a way past. The race cam on the Rothmans Audi shows Aberdeen sliding the Bosel entry all over the circuit in an effort to get to grips with the race leader. A relaxed Moss appeared to have matters under control. The Port Elizabeth farmer, who dabbles in water divining on the side, was born under the Leo star sign. He loves Leon Schuster comedies, hates cats, and has high hopes for South Africa in the future. Much to Dion Joubert's relief, the situation in Class B had been settled. After Johan Coetzee's excursion into the Armco barrier, Joubert had taken complete control and tightened his grip when teammate Tony Viana ran into mechanical problems in the second BMW. Veteran Gary Dunkley was still going strong in the aging Sabat Porsche Carrera and moved up a place when he whipped past the stricken Viana on the old pit straight. In his time, Dunkley has driven just about everything on four wheels, and the Porsche is a favorite at tracks throughout the country. Richie Jute was also keeping the flag flying for the older generation. After a couple of years on the sidelines, the lure of the track was too much for Jute, who was doing a good job of keeping Keith Carr in his mirrors. Steve Wyndham was having a much tougher time of it in Class D, and with the Automark Toyota Conquest's tyre going off the boil, it was now under severe pressure from Richard Sorensen and Jannie Stradom. On the climb up to Wesbank Corner, young Sorensen finally got his nose in front, with Wyndham just managing to hold the inside line to stay ahead of Stradom. Downhill on the daunting IGI mineshaft, the three cars were still locked together in what had been an enthralling battle. On the approach to the Continental hairpin, Stradom slipped past Wyndham but ran wide. The Cape Townian bravely fought back with a three-way duel indicative of the competitive nature of the racing in Class D. While the Class D brigade continued to have fun, Aberdeen was still trying to find a way past race leader Terry Moss. Down the IGI mineshaft, the Audis hit around 250 kilometers an hour, but Moss was still looking remarkably casual behind the wheel. With the G-forces building up at the Continental hairpin, one hand on the steering wheel was also good enough for Moss. With the two front-runners on their last lap, Aberdeen still had not thrown in the towel. Now a qualified helicopter pilot, Aberdeen was looking to force a late mistake from Moss, but had run out of race distance. As the checkered flag fell, Moss was still out in front in the Rothmans car. Dion Joubert took third spot ahead of Larry Wilford and Gary Dunkley, with Richie Jute a creditable sixth.